You are looking at your dashboard right now, feeling a completely false sense of security just because that little yellow tire pressure warning light is turned off. You think everything is perfectly fine down there where the rubber meets the road. But I'm here to tell you that you are being lied to by your own dashboard, and it is silently costing you an absolute fortune. That little light is not a friendly maintenance reminder keeping you safe. It is a literal fire alarm. Automotive engineers program that tire pressure monitoring system to stay completely silent until your tire has lost a massive 25% of its air. By the time that light actually illuminates on your gauge cluster, you are not just a little low on air. You are rolling on a dangerously underinflated tire that is generating intense internal heat, flexing violently at highway speeds, and silently chewing through the expensive rubber you paid good money for. You would not trust a battery percentage indicator that only warns you when your iPhone 13 mini or your iPhone 16e is 3 seconds away from permanently shutting down in the middle of an important phone call, would you? Of course not. So why are you trusting a dummy light with your life, your handling, and your wallet? Let us talk about that holy grail of tire maintenance that everyone blindly follows without question. The sticker on the inside of your driver door jamb. You know the exact one I'm talking about. It usually tells you to inflate all 4 tires to something generic like 32 psi. Mechanics tell you to follow it. Dealerships swear by it. Your owner's manual treats it like absolute gospel. But almost everything you know about that number is entirely wrong. And following it blindly is exactly why your tires are wearing out prematurely, why your fuel economy is suffering, and why your car feels vague and sloppy in the corners. I'm going to explain exactly why that sticker is actively misleading you, but more importantly, I will show you how to find the actual sweet spot for your specific vehicle. And trust me, once you understand the simple, undeniable physics behind what is happening in your wheel wells, you will never look at an air compressor the same way again. The biggest secret the automotive industry does not want to broadcast is how they actually calculate that 32 psi figure on your door. That number is not the optimum pressure for your tires. It is not the pressure that will give you the longest tread life, the sharpest handling, or the best possible fuel economy. That number is simply the absolute minimum safe pressure required to carry the maximum theoretical weight your vehicle is rated for. When the engineers at the factory print that sticker, they are designing for a worst-case scenario. They are picturing your Ford F-150 completely maxed out with a massive payload of bricks in the bed. Or they are imagining a Volkswagen Passat B-Series stuffed with 5 heavy adults and a trunk filled to the absolute brim with heavy luggage. They calculate the bare minimum amount of air needed to keep the tire beads seated on the rim and prevent total structural failure under that extreme maximum load while you are doing 75 miles an hour on the interstate. But let us be brutally honest for a second. How often are you actually driving your car heavily loaded like that? For 90% of us, 90% of the time, the reality is entirely different. It is just you in the driver's seat, maybe a passenger next to you, and a couple of bags of groceries sitting in the trunk. Your vehicle is weighing in hundreds, if not thousands of pounds lighter than that maximum gross vehicle weight rating. When you run that factory 32 psi with a lightly loaded car, your tire cannot hold its proper engineered shape. The pressure is simply too low to keep the structural integrity of the tire carcass rigid against the asphalt. As a result, the center of the tire tread actually bows upwards, lifting slightly off the pavement. You cannot see it with the naked eye while the car is parked, but it is happening. The entire weight of your vehicle shifts aggressively to the outer edges, or the shoulders, of the tires. Imagine taking a slightly deflated balloon and pressing it down firmly onto a flat table. The center collapses inward, and only the outer ring of the balloon makes solid contact with the surface. Your tires are doing the exact same thing on the road. Those outer edges are suddenly forced to do all the heavy lifting. They have to support the weight, manage the steering inputs, and handle the heavy braking forces. They were never designed to do that job completely alone. Because of this heavily concentrated friction, the shoulders of your tires wear out at an incredibly accelerated rate, while the center tread just goes along for a free ride, barely touching the ground. You end up throwing away a tire that still has plenty of meat in the middle, simply because the edges are worn down to the wear bars or even showing the internal metal cords. You are throwing away thousands of dollars over the lifetime of a vehicle purely because of bad geometry. This problem gets exponentially worse when you factor in modern suspension setups. Let us say you are driving a BMW, perhaps an E36, an E46, or an E90. These cars are legendary for their handling, and part of the reason they handle so sharply is because they come from the factory with a decent amount of negative camber. The tops of the tires tilt slightly inward toward the center of the car. This is fantastic for cornering grip on a canyon road, but when you combine that aggressive factory camber angle with the low tire pressure recommended on the door jamb, you are creating a perfect storm for rapid tire destruction. The tire is already leaning heavily on its inside edge by design. Without enough internal air pressure to keep the sidewall stiff and the contact patch completely flat, the tire simply folds under the dynamic weight of that heavy German chassis. You are effectively grinding the inner shoulder of your tire into fine dust against the pavement. Many drivers blame a bad alignment for this kind of inner edge wear, taking the car to the shop and spending unnecessary money, when very often, the alignment is perfectly within factory specifications. The real culprit was just running 32 psi instead of the actual pressure the tire needed to properly support the suspension geometry. And here is another massive variable that the door sticker entirely ignores: the ambient temperature outside. Tire pressure is not a set-it-and-forget-it maintenance item. Yet, that is exactly how most people treat it. The laws of physics dictate that for roughly every 10 degrees Fahrenheit the outside temperature drops, your tires will naturally lose about 1 psi of internal pressure. Think about what that actually means for your daily driving. Let us say you check your tires in the middle of a hot summer afternoon and meticulously set them to that factory 32 psi. You feel good about it, but then you just forget about them. Fall turns into winter, and suddenly it is freezing outside. Because of the temperature drop alone, your tires have silently lost 4 or 5 psi. You are now rolling around on 27 or 28 psi. Your tires are essentially acting like mushy jelly on the road. The sidewalls are overheating from excessive flexing. The tread blocks are squirming around under hard braking, and your rolling resistance goes completely through the roof. This means your engine has to work significantly harder just to keep the car moving at a constant speed. Your fuel economy absolutely tanks, and your tires wear out even faster. Let me paint a picture of what this looks like structurally. A tire is not just a balloon made of rubber. Underneath that black exterior, there is a highly complex matrix of steel belts, nylon overlays, and strong polyester cords. This internal skeleton is designed to maintain a very specific shape under load. When you underinflate a tire by relying on that generic door sticker for your daily commute, you are forcing that internal steel structure to bend and flex in ways it was never meant to. Every single time the tire rotates, the sidewall bulges out violently as it hits the pavement and then snaps back into place as it rotates away. At highway speeds, this rapid flexing happens over 1,000 times per minute. All that internal friction generates a massive amount of heat. Heat is the ultimate enemy of rubber. It breaks down the chemical bonds in the tire compound, accelerates the wear process, and, in extreme cases, causes the tread to physically separate from the steel belts. This is precisely why you see those massive chunks of shredded tires littering the side of the interstate during the hot summer months. So, if the door sticker is not giving you the best advice for daily driving, what is the actual correct pressure? The secret is written right on the side of your tire, but you have to know how to read it. If you go out to your car right now and look closely at the sidewall, you will find a bunch of tiny lettering. Look for the maximum pressure rating. It will usually say something like max pressure 50 psi or Max pressure 44 psi cold. That number is not a vague suggestion. It is the absolute maximum engineered limit that the tire casing can safely handle without failing. Now, I am not telling you to inflate your tires to 50 psi. That would be completely insane and ruin your ride quality. The sweet spot, the optimum pressure for perfectly even wear, crisp handling, and maximized fuel economy is usually found by adding roughly 3 to 5 psi over what the door jamb sticker says, provided you are driving a lightly loaded vehicle. If your door sticker says 32 and your tire has a maximum rating of 50, try running your tires at 36 or 38 psi. For decades, you have probably been heavily conditioned to believe that going over the door sticker means you are overinflating the tire and risking a dangerous blowout. We need to completely reset that perspective right now. If the tire is engineered to withstand 50 psi, putting 37 psi in it is utilizing barely 75% of its structural capacity. You are not stressing the tire whatsoever. You are actually moving it closer to its optimum operating window where it wants to live. When you bump that pressure up to 36 or 38 psi, pure mechanical magic happens. The sidewall stiffens up properly. That collapsed center of the tread pushes down and makes firm, even contact with the asphalt. Suddenly, the entire width of the tire is sharing the load equally, exactly as the tire engineers intended. The rolling resistance drops dramatically. Just by making this small, free adjustment, you can easily see your fuel consumption drop. If you were averaging roughly 30 miles to the gallon, optimizing your tire pressure could easily push that up to 31 or 32, saving you hundreds of dollars at the gas pump over the lifespan of those tires. Furthermore, your steering response will feel noticeably sharper. The car will not feel like it is wandering around lazily on the highway, and you will not have to replace those tires years before their time. You might logically be wondering, if running a slightly higher pressure is so much better for the tire and the wallet, why do automakers put such a low number on the door in the first place? It comes down to two simple things: ride comfort and corporate liability. Automakers are terrified that if the suspension feels too harsh during a test drive, you will simply walk away and not buy their car. Lower tire pressure acts like a secondary suspension system. It absorbs small bumps, potholes, and rough pavement, making the ride feel incredibly soft and plush. They are intentionally sacrificing the lifespan of your expensive tires to give you a slightly softer ride off the dealer lot. Secondly, they have to protect themselves legally in court. They have to recommend a pressure that is safe, even if you do something incredibly foolish, like overloading the car way past its weight limits and driving through a blazing desert. They are hedging their corporate bets, and you are the one paying the steep price in ruined rubber. Let us quickly clarify what overinflation actually means, because there is a lot of bad information floating around out there on the internet. Overinflation is when you actively exceed the maximum pressure listed on the sidewall of the tire itself. If your tire says max 50 and you pump it up to 55, you are overinflating. That is highly dangerous. The ride will become bone-jarringly stiff. The center of the tire will balloon outward like a motorcycle tire and wear unevenly. And a harsh impact with a sharp pothole could easily rupture the internal belts, causing an instant blowout. But running 37 psi in a tire clearly rated for 50 is perfectly safe, well within strict engineering tolerances, and vastly superior to running 32. Sure, you might feel the expansion joints on the highway a tiny bit more. The ride might become marginally firmer over broken pavement, but the massive trade-off is a tire that lasts tens of thousands of miles longer, keeps your hard-earned money in your pocket instead of the gas station, and actually responds accurately when you turn the steering wheel to avoid an obstacle. Tire shops are not necessarily trying to actively scam you when they set your pressures to the door sticker. They're just blindly following standard operating procedure to avoid any potential liability. But every single time your tires wear out prematurely on the edges and you have to come back 3 years early to buy a brand new set, nobody in the tire business is crying about it. They are just happily ringing up the register. So, Stop trusting the dummy light on your dashboard. Stop treating the door jamb sticker like an unbreakable law of physics. Go out to your driveway, check the maximum pressure rating on your specific tires, and experiment with a pressure that is 3 to 5 pounds higher than the factory recommendation. Your wallet, your steering wheel, and your tires will thank you.